It's not just about the love of the game. It's about dedication and commitment through the process and the patience to endure. There's joy in reaching your goals and peace in knowing you've done all you're supposed to do. Voyze brand. It's not just a brand, it's a lifestyle.
I love that commercial. Make sure you all get your Voyzes. You got football season come up. They got them colorways out there. I need to holler at them because I need some all black ones so I can have like Voyze brand energy when I come in here. My legs gonna be ashy. I'm gonna have tube socks on. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be smoke o'clock, but I'm coming. I need to put that on the t-shirt. Anyway,
if you really want that to add that kind of energy, you need some church socks.
I feel like you already got them. I'm not even gonna touch that. You can have that. I don't need church socks falling down to my kneecaps. Now, Voyze, your favorite boxer's back. After all the headlines and the back and forth, Jake Paul and Nate Diaz will finally face off inside the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas on August 5th. Now, while the fight will be in the ring, it looks like ticket sales are causing even more of a beef outside of the ring. Most recently, Jake Paul has been highly critical of Diaz, saying he'd hoped Nate would do more to hype up and promote the fight. The fight is currently struggling in ticket sales and pay-per-view sales, and this is something that Diaz has no desire to do. He recently stated while speaking to ESPN, "I think my fighting promotes as it is. I don't promote my fights. I'm not going to get in like a little kid argument with the guy and act like we're any realer than it is. It don't get no realer than this anyway. I don't talk a bunch like he wants to, and I don't want to stay and talk and go back and forth." He said something about me at the press conference, and I'm like, I wasn't there for no argument. I don't even want to go to no press conference to argue with nobody. Like, if we're going to argue, we just need to go ahead and fight. Let's just stay away from each other until the fight and call it what it is. Now, Diaz does have extra incentive because he's coming in as the underdog against Paul, and critics have been down on him concerning the sparring videos that have been shared to YouTube, showing Diaz apparently not looking too great. Now, Diaz is going to be making his boxing debut after becoming a free agent, departing UFC after literally declining to resign with the promotion. Now, Voyze, I know Jake Paul's entire premise and focus is ticket sales, but is the Jake Paul spark starting to wear off? And what do you make of the fact that Diaz, who literally is a legitimate fighter, is coming into this as a heavy underdog against the one loss Paul currently? How are you feeling about that? Because that seems a little weird.
It may seem weird, but it's not weird, especially not from a boxing perspective. And you know me, I'm going to take the last and then go to the first. Hopefully I remember the first. I may need a little reminder, but either way it goes, we're going to keep the party going. It's not that uncommon. If you look at these fights where you have these really crossover fights, or as Dana White has termed them, gimmick fights. It's not a good thing for the MMA fighter. Like, it's good for their pocketbook, but as far as their success rate, yeah, it's not good at all. Like, they lose the majority of the time. The only fighter I can think of who's had success is my man Anderson the Spider Silva. He's had success. He did lose against Paul, but he's had success. And not the Phenom, but his brother Showtime, Anthony Pettis, when he beat Roy Jones Jr., my boy, in a fight card put on by Jorge Masvidal not too long ago. So as far as the odds are concerned, I think they're not that bad. Last I checked, Paul was a moderate favorite at 275, and I'm sorry that 275, 200, somewhere in there. Negative 275, and Diaz was a moderate underdog at plus 200. That's actually pretty close. So, I don't think that the odds are off because of those things. And then here's some other things that we must be mindful of. Jake Paul is 12 years younger than Diaz is. He's also naturally the bigger man. So those are things that are in his plus bucket that Diaz doesn't have. Oh yeah, he's had 7 professional boxing matches. Big difference between boxing and MMA. They may both have striking components, but totally different styles of martial arts. And just everything about the fight is pointing towards him to win. Nate, on the other hand, he's not going to have to cut weight for this fight. The highest that he's ever fought professionally has been 175, and this is billed at 185. I'm sorry, not 175, 170. And this is billed at 185. He'll probably walk in with his clothes on and weigh in because he just is not that big of a guy. Something else that does benefit him, though, is he is in shape. He's always in shape. The man does Ironmans just for funsies. It's like, oh yeah, we got a race this weekend. Like, who does that? Who does that? Nate Diaz does. Also, Nate is awkward. You talked about those slow punches and things of that nature. Speaking of your boy, Jerron Boots Ennis, let's bring it back in. He did a slow-mo in a fight and punched a dude in the face. How do you punch somebody in the face literally going in slow motion? It's really easy. It's called a changeup. That happens in baseball all the time. You throw something at an off speed and it catches them off guard because they're not used to that speed of a punch. And he's awkward. He's really awkward. Doesn't stop throwing punches either. How is Jake going to be able to deal with that kind of pressure? Hasn't faced that kind of pressure before. And not only that kind of pressure, but somebody in your face, punching all the time, calling you all kind of names, telling you can't punch, and all of that. How's that going to mess with his psyche? I know that he's a master troll, but when you're fighting and these things are happening, that can have a whole different effect on you. This is his boxing debut, but he has had 34 fights over a nearly 19-year MMA career. When he started fighting, Jake Paul was 7 years old. 7 years old. So, there is definitely a fighting experience there. Not necessarily a boxing experience. So he's boxed for years with Andre Ward. Tyron Woodley boxed for 10 years at Wild Card, and you see how well that did for him. I'm interested in seeing how things will turn out. Should Jake Paul win? Absolutely. If he doesn't win, with the sagging ticket sales, because he said he wasn't going to do another fight in August, like it's just not a good time. Well, you did it again, brother. With the sagging ticket sales, with having someone who he thought, and I don't know why he thought that he thought was going to promote the fight. Nate never talks. He always sits back and just says little things. But you have the diehard fan base of the Nick Diaz army that's going to be all behind him. And yeah, you may not see it right now, but when they show up in their all black, woo, yeah, it's going to be something. It's going to be something.
So do you feel like since the loss that Paul had against Tommy Fury most recently, do you feel like that's kind of killed off the spark of the Jake Paul excitement, so to speak? Because I don't think they were expecting for ticket sales to be the way they were going into this bout a couple days away.
I don't know that it killed it, but it definitely has an impact, which is why it is so critical that he is victorious and looks good in this fight. Because if he were to lose, it's probably over for him. I mean, could he fight KSI? Yeah, he probably could, but you know, who knows how well that would do, or even if KSI will want that fight, especially if he beats Fury, then you know it's like, no, I don't need to mess with you. Let me move on to bigger and better things. So it's an absolute must needs that, again, not only does he win, but he needs to win convincingly, or his 15 minutes of fame in the world of combat sports may be over.
Definitely may have a lasting effect, especially switching down with a lot of the deals that he signed. This definitely seems like a make or break for Jake Paul, so we'll see what happens. Also, I know the Voice is going to be covering this fight, so make sure you are following on. Do we still call it Twitter? Make sure you still following on Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter. His mama called it Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter.
Well, his mama ain't around no more. Neither is his daddy. That's the problem. It's been orphaned.
Well, I'm talking about. Wow, you went really dark there. You know what? No, let's move on. Jake Paul need to win. Let's move on. Now, moving on to UFC. The UFC is making a return to Nashville for the 6th time as UFC Bantamweight Championship challenger Corey Sandhagen is expected to main event in a catchweight bout against late replacement Rob Font on August 5th in the Bridgestone Arena. Now, the Sandman was originally scheduled to face the undefeated Young Eagle Umar Nurmagomedov, who had to pull out weeks ago due to a shoulder injury. Yeah, we're laughing because Voice know I butcher that man's name all the time. Now for Sandhagen, this was originally an opportunity that was brought to him as a #1 contender spot that the UFC offered because, as he stated, no one wanted to fight Umar. So while Corey is slightly disappointed not to face Umar, he's still looking forward to the opportunity because, as he stated, with a win, they have already decided that he is set to be next in line for a title fight. Now, this is going to be very interesting because it could potentially be against a very familiar foe in Aljamain Sterling, the current champ, and the man who gave Sandhagen his first loss in the UFC at UFC 250. Now, while he's excited for the opportunity and he's looking forward to it, he realizes this won't be an easy bout. Font is coming in 20-6, but he's coming off a first-round TKO of Adrian Yanez and is a 7th-ranked bantamweight and 5-2 in his last 7 bouts. Now, Voice, I know we were looking forward to what was going to be considered a #1 contenders bout here, but with a win, does Sandhagen truly deserve that #1 contenders spot? And what would a bout between him and Aljamain Sterling truly look like after all the fights that Sandhagen has taken since then, including his last loss to Peter Yan in that bantamweight championship bout at UFC 267?
All right. As far as #1 is concerned, the UFC no, they don't. Actually, the writers are the ones that do the rankings. But just because they say you're going to be #1, regardless of the number by your name, doesn't mean much. You know, Dana White famously said women will never fight in the UFC, and the women's divisions have been some of the best that the UFC has ever had. So you have to take all of that with a grain of salt. Whoever wins this fight keeps themselves in contention to fight for the title. They won't fight for the title next. They will need another fight because you going to your second point as regarding Aljamain Sterling, he's not going to fight Aljamain, not at 135. He's not, because the fight that he's going to have with Sugar Sean O'Malley will be his last at 135. Win, lose, or draw. Well, maybe not a draw, but win or lose, he's going to featherweight next. He said he was going to do that to open the way for his man, Merab Dvalishvili. So Yeah, you might be the number one contender, but you're not gonna get the next shot at the title. No, the winner will likely face either Sugar Sean O'Malley, not if he's a champion, if he loses. But they'll either face Sugar Sean O'Malley or they'll face Henry Cejudo, more than likely, because Merab, he's going to fight for the title. It's just who is he going to fight for said title? Again, with a win, both of these fighters need another shot. They're very similar as far as their records or their backgrounds are concerned. Over the last 5 fights, they are both 3-2. They have both lost to former champions in Jan and Dillashaw for Corey, and in Aldo for Rob Font. You know, Corey has stopped 63% of the fights that he's won. Rob has stopped 65% of the fights that he's won. Both of them have more strike stoppages than submissions. You know, neither have been stopped by strikes, and both have been submitted one time. So again, they're very their backstories are very, very similar. So it's going to be interesting to see who can implement their game plan most effectively, and whether or not a stoppage is in play. I really don't see it. I see this going all 5 rounds. I'd be pleasantly surprised if it doesn't. And whoever wins, again, keeps themselves in the mix, but they won't be next.
Man, it's definitely interesting because he's definitely gone through all of his media pressers stating that that's the main reason why he was taking this fight, and he wants another opportunity. Now, since his bout against Peter Yan for the Bantamweight Championship, Sandhagen is the winner of his last 2 bouts, so he is coming in on the slight winning streak. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And like you said, you know, we all know how Dana White decides to move. He can pull the rug up under you at any time. It's like he deserves to be in WWE, because that's what they do there too.
Well, I mean, he does take many of his business move cues and clues from the WWE. So take it for what it's worth.
Definitely. Now, we are finally here. The Voyze's Marquee matchup. Now, this week's Voyze's Marquee matchup sees a former champion take on an undefeated upstart and season 23 winner of the Ultimate Fighter reality show, as Jessica Andrade takes on Tatiana Suarez in the co-main event of UFC on ESPN 50. Now, Voyze, tell us why this is this week's Voyze's Marquee matchup, and what should we look forward to in the bout where Andrade is literally filling in on a short notice?
This is the Voyze's Marquee matchup primarily because of Tatiana Suarez. Before injuring her neck, the tough winner had been on a fast track for a title fight, and this should put her on the short list of contenders at 115. She has beaten former champions before, and if she beats Andrade, that'll be 2 former champions that she's beaten. But let's not forget that she also has beaten the current 125-pound queen, Alexa Grasso. This Lindenwood Lion, that's right, I said Lindenwood. Where's Lindenwood? St. Charles, Missouri. So St. Louis metropolitan area stand up. You know, she is right there on the cusp of fighting for the title, and really for the majority of her career, it's been like, who's gonna stop her? Like, who has the ability to stop her? Really, only herself. Now, Bate Estaka, 71% of her wins have been by stoppage, almost half and half, 9 knockouts and 8 submissions. 3 of her last 2 fights she won, but she's riding a 2-fight losing streak into this one. Now, outside of her loss to Rose, most of her losses have been by stoppage. She's trying her hand again at 115, which is another kind of something. A loss, though, could be the end for the former 115-pound champion. So this is why it's the Voyze's Marquee matchup. Again, Grasso, seems to be on a fast track to a title. And for Andrade, it's, does she still have it? Can she still make a run at the title? We'll find out when the pin drops, the cage door locks, the thumbs go up, and they start the clock.
There you have it. That's this week's Voyze's Marquee matchup. Now, of her 9 wins, Suarez has defeated opponents by knockout or submission a total of 6 times. So Jessica definitely has her hands full. But of course, like I said, it's a short matchup that was actually just changed, I believe, within the last week or two due to an injury to Tatiana's previous opponent. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in with us. MTMV Sports, you know, we are individuals who love sports. We love to talk about sports, and we live sports. Who you think gonna win between Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler? I'm taking Shayna Baszler. I've seen the vignettes. It's really good. I think this is Ronda Rousey's swan song in WWE. She's been talking about leaving for a while now, and I think this is the opportunity to shoot Shayna Baszler back into the stratosphere. If you paid attention, in NXT, Shayna Baszler was unstoppable, basically undefeated. So I literally think that's what should happen, but we all know WWE will trick you at the last minute, so we'll see. But I'm excited for it. SummerSlam is going to be a big event. As I was saying, MTMV Sports. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you're riding in the car and you can't watch these beautiful faces, make sure you pick up the podcast, because we're on every podcast you could think of. Apple Music, Spotify. I'm not going to name them all. And make sure you visit the website, MTMVPN. Is it Jay's time? Interestingly enough, yes, I think it is. I don't think they'll pull the trigger on it, because that's a big move, and Roman is so close to breaking continuous records for holding the title. I would love to see Jay get the win and them catapult him in some kind of way. I do know Roman is not scheduled for another pay-per-view until Survivor Series, but it's going to be a major matchup. So y'all keep coming with these wrestling questions, and Voyze is just sitting there looking.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna let you do your thing, because the only thing I know is it seems as if they being the WWE is really getting behind and pushing Roman right now. So to undercut him by putting Jay in place seems a little like against what the business plan is, unless they just do one of those deals where he has a cup of coffee with the belt, and then Roman comes back and reasserts himself as a tribal chief. Yeah, I said it. Tribal chief. I know something.
You barely know. I don't think it would be bad. I don't think it would be bad, because overall, the past 3 years, they've been ultimately telling a story. I think what people are finally realizing is that the story has been about Jay from the get-go. The story has been about Jay coming out of his shell, main event Jey Uso, given the opportunity, and he's shown out in every opportunity. This has been great for Roman, because Roman has gotten a chance to elevate his family. He's gotten a chance to literally tell the best story that we've seen in WWE probably in about 20 years. And every week has been consistent for about 3 years. If they pull the trigger, I wouldn't be mad about it. But the question is, if you do it, where do you go from there with Jay, and how do you continue to tell the story? I think ultimately Jay has a great outing at SummerSlam. I think ultimately, though, Roman ends up winning in some kind of ridiculous way. And I think what ends up happening is that we see a continuation of the Bloodline story without Roman for about 1 or 2 months. Maybe even a surprise appearance by The Rock. But I would not be against Jay getting the opportunity, because at this point he's earned it. But I ultimately think Jimmy's going to end up costing Jay the title. I think that's what's going to end up happening. So we will definitely see. And that's going to be next. That's going to be this coming Saturday on pay-per-view. That's going to be live from Detroit, actually. So make sure you tune into that.
Saturday. What? I mean, the 5th?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be Saturday night. Because actually that same night, you also, if you watch AEW Collision has a championship bout between CM Punk and Ricky Starks, which is a big deal also.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's a
that
great
Ricky
opportunity.
Starks. Woo! He sure is somebody that I've never heard of.
Ricky Starks is a black wrestler who is literally taking over AEW by storm. An incredible wrestler. And it would be a great opportunity for him. He kind of resonates a lot with The Rock for people who grew up on WWE. Voyze, I'm not gonna let you ruin this for me, okay? No, I say he kind of resonates with The Rock. The Rock is black.
He's a black Rock.
I'm not. Voyze, I'm not. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Voyze,
I got some
words. Yeah, I know it's a couple fights. What you got to say, Voyze?
So Amanda Serrano and Heather Hardy will fight again for the undisputed title at 126 pounds. I say fight again because they fought before in a unification bout somewhat some years ago, back in 2019, where Serrano was successful, and more than likely she'll be successful in this one too. It's just a nice fight and a nice payday for her, being on the undercard of Paul and, I was going to say Fury, but it's not Fury, Paul and Diaz. The PFL also has a card coming up this week, which features featherweights, and it's got that bad man Bubba Jenkins taking on Jesus Pinheiro. It's funny to me because we know that Bubba Jenkins is a very strong and outspoken believer in Christ, and he's fighting somebody named Jesus. So it's a little funny to me there. Also, we got Nigeria's own Kennedy Nzechukwu, who will be on that Nashville card as well. So just a few other things to look for this weekend in fights.
Awesome. And for my wrestling friends who literally asked me, if you're looking for some of the best wrestling bouts, if you get a chance on Peacock Network, go back and watch Carmelo Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov. It's literally a match of the year candidate. It's a great bout. It was for the NXT Championship this past weekend. Shout out to my friends at Full Sail. And that's it. That's all we got. Voyze, take us out.
Until next time, fight the good fight.
Hey guys, it's your girl C, and you just watched the show on MTMV Sports Network. And if you like what you see and you want more exciting content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.